It was one of those days that seemed to blend into the rest. The kind of day where you go through the motions, not expecting much to change. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping my lukewarm coffee and scrolling through my emails, when a subject line caught my eye. "You deserve to know." I clicked on it more out of curiosity than anything else. The email was anonymous, with a cryptic message that read, "Look closely before it's too late," followed by a photo of Grant, my husband, with a woman I didn't recognize. They were at a cafe, leaning in close, sharing a moment that looked far too intimate for my comfort. My heart skipped, then raced, as if trying to catch up with the reality that was unfolding before me. My name is Mabel, and up until that moment, I believed I had a pretty good handle on my life. I'm a dental hygienist, and I like to think I'm pretty good at reading people. But this felt like a betrayal I never saw coming. I stared at the screen, my mind a whirlwind of doubt and disbelief. Grant and I had been together for over a decade, and while things weren't perfect, I never imagined this. I decided to confront him that evening. As he walked through the door, I tried to act normal, but my hands shook slightly as I handed him a glass of wine. He took it, kissed my cheek, and asked about my day. I could barely focus on the small talk, my mind fixated on the email. "Grant," I said, trying to sound casual, "I got an interesting email today." He looked up from his phone, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "Oh, from who?" "That's the thing," I replied, watching his face closely. "It was anonymous, but it had a picture of you with someone I don't know." His reaction was immediate, a flicker of something. Was it guilt or surprise? Crossed his face before he composed himself. "Mabel, you know how these things are. Probably just some spam or a scam. You can't trust everything you see online." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But there was something in his tone, something evasive, that made my stomach twist. "And the woman in the picture?" He shrugged, too nonchalantly. "Probably someone from work. You know how it is with clients." I nodded, but inside, my doubt was growing. Grant's family was wealthy, with a legacy steeped in power and control. I'd always felt a bit like an outsider, especially around his father, Walter, who had this way of making everyone feel small. But Grant had always been my anchor in that world. Now, that anchor felt like it was slipping away. Later that night, as he slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a storm of questions. Was this just a misunderstanding? Or was there something more, something dangerous, lurking beneath the surface? I thought of Hazel, our niece, who had come to live with us after her parents, Clark and Fiona, passed away. She was a bright kid, too smart for her own good sometimes, and she had already been through so much. I couldn't let her get caught up in whatever this was. I had to protect her. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. I started with Grant's office, looking for anything that might explain the photo. It felt wrong, like I was invading his privacy, but I had to know. As I sifted through papers, I found something odd, financial documents that hinted at a secret trust fund. It was a small discovery, but it felt like the tip of an iceberg. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone I could trust, someone who could help me navigate this tangled web. My mind immediately went to Nora, my best friend and confidant. She was pragmatic and no-nonsense, the kind of person who could see through the fog of emotions and get to the heart of the matter. As I closed the door to Grant's office, I felt a chill run down my spine. Whatever this was, it was bigger than I had imagined, and I had a feeling it was just the beginning. I glanced at my phone, the anonymous email still open. There was no sender, no trail to follow. But the message was clear. Look closely before it's too late. I was already in too deep to turn back now. The truth, whatever it was, had to be uncovered. For Hazel, for myself, and maybe even for Grant. The question was, how far was I willing to go to find it? The next morning, I decided to visit Hazel at Walter and Vivian's estate. It was something I did often, but today felt different, charged with a tension I couldn't quite place. As I drove up the long, winding driveway lined with perfectly manicured hedges, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into enemy territory. The estate was as imposing as ever, a testament to Walter's success and, perhaps, his need to project power. Vivian greeted me at the door, her smile as polished as the marble floors. "Mabel, darling, how lovely to see you," she said, her eyes scanning me with the precision of a hawk. I couldn't help but wonder what she was searching for. "Hi, Vivian. Is Hazel around?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "She's in the garden," Vivian replied, her tone clipped. "She's been spending a lot of time there lately." I nodded, making my way through the house. The air was thick with unspoken words, a tension that clung to the walls like dust. As I stepped outside, I spotted Hazel sitting on a stone bench, her face buried in a book. She looked up as I approached, her expression brightening. "Aunt Mabel," she exclaimed, setting the book aside and running to me. I hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "Hey, kiddo. How's everything going?" I asked, pulling back to look at her. She shrugged, a shadow passing over her features. "It's okay, I guess. Grandma and Grandpa have been acting weird." I frowned, kneeling down to her level. "Weird how?" Hazel hesitated, glancing back at the house. "It's like they're always watching me, like I'm part of some plan I don't know about." Her words sent a chill down my spine. "Hazel, you know you can tell me anything, right?" She nodded, her eyes earnest. "I know. It's just, I miss Mom and Dad, and sometimes I feel like I'm just a piece in their game." I hugged her again, my heart aching for her. "You're not a piece, Hazel. You're family, and I'm going to make sure you're okay." As we sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling that the Quinns were up to something. The anonymous email, the photo of Grant, the secret trust fund, they all pointed to a web of secrets I was only beginning to unravel. Later, as I was leaving, I ran into Walter in the hallway. He was a tall man, his presence commanding even in silence. "Mabel," he said, his voice smooth but with an edge that always put me on guard. "How's Hazel?" "She's doing okay," I replied, meeting his gaze. "But she misses her parents." Walter nodded, his expression inscrutable. "We all do. It's been hard on the family." I watched him carefully, searching for any sign of the man behind the mask. "I hope we can all work together to make things easier for her." "Of course," he said, a hint of something, was it sincerity or calculation, in his voice. "Family is everything." As I drove home, I replayed the conversation in my mind. Walter's words seemed genuine, but there was something about his demeanor that made me uneasy. I had a feeling that whatever was happening, it was far from over. Back at home, I found myself drawn to Grant's office again. The financial documents I had discovered nagged at me, a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. As I sifted through papers, I stumbled upon something new, a list of transactions connected to a trust fund in Hazel's name. The amounts were staggering, far beyond anything I had imagined. This revelation threw everything into chaos. If Hazel was at the center of a financial scheme, it meant the stakes were higher than I thought. I needed to talk to Nora to get her take on all of this. That evening, I met Nora at a small cafe, the kind of place where you could talk without being overheard. As I laid out everything I had found, her expression shifted from concern to a steely determination. "Mabel, this is serious," she said, her voice low. "You need to be careful. If Walter and Vivian are involved, they won't take kindly to anyone interfering." I nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. "I know, but I can't just stand by and do nothing. Hazel deserves better." Nora reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Then we'll figure this out together. But you need to be smart about it. We can't let them know we're onto them." As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of fear and resolve. The Quinns were hiding something, and I was determined to uncover it. But the more I dug, the more dangerous it felt. I had to protect Hazel, and that meant taking risks I never anticipated. The question was, how far was I willing to go? And what would I find once I reached the bottom of this tangled mess? The days after my visit to the Quinn estate felt like walking on a tightrope. Every interaction with Grant was tinged with an unspoken tension, a dance around the elephant in the room. I was determined to protect Hazel, but the more I dug, the more I realized how tangled this web really was. Nora called me one afternoon with a lead. "Mabel, I think you need to hear this, she said, her voice urgent. I was talking to a friend who used to work in finance. They mentioned something about Clark and Fiona looking into Walter's business deals before their accident. A chill ran down my spine. You think it's connected? I don't know, but it seems too coincidental to ignore, Nora replied. Be careful, Mabel. This could be bigger than we thought. Her words echoed in my mind as I went through Fiona's belongings later that evening. I had avoided it for too long, fearing what I might find. As I sifted through her papers, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic.
A key.
My heart skipped a beat. It was a small, nondescript key, but it felt significant. I knew Fiona had secrets, but this was a tangible link to whatever she had been hiding. The key was a promise of answers, but it also felt like opening Pandora's box. The next day, I decided to talk to Grant. I needed to know where he stood in all of this. As he sat across from me at the kitchen table, I could see the weight of his family's legacy etched into his features. Grant, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I found something in Fiona's things. A key. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. A key to what? I don't know yet, but I think it might be important, I replied, searching his face for any hint of recognition or guilt. Grant sighed, rubbing his temples. Mabel, you know how complicated my family is. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. Hazel deserves to know the truth. We all do. He nodded, a shadow passing over his expression. I know. I don't want to lose you over this. His words hung in the air, a confession of sorts. I reached across the table, taking his hand. Then help me find out what really happened. As we sat there, I could feel the walls between us starting to crack, revealing the raw, vulnerable truth beneath. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. That evening, I decided to visit the bank and see what the key unlocked. As I stood in front of the safety deposit box, my hands trembled with anticipation and fear. I took a deep breath and turned the key. Inside, I found a stack of documents and a letter addressed to me. The documents detailed Walter's illegal real estate deals, a web of corruption that stretched far beyond what I had imagined. The letter, written in Fiona's familiar handwriting, was a plea for help, expressing her fears for her and Clark's safety. My heart pounded as I read her words, the enormity of the situation crashing down on me. Fiona had known the risks, yet she had tried to uncover the truth. And now, it was up to me to finish what she had started. I left the bank with a new sense of purpose, but also a growing fear of what might come next. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every turn a potential danger. Back at the house, I found Hazel in the living room, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop. She looked up as I entered, a question in her eyes. Hey, Aunt Mabel. Everything okay? She asked, her voice tentative. I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside. Yeah, just a long day. As I watched her return to her screen, I knew I couldn't let her down. I had to protect her from whatever darkness the Quinn legacy harbored. But with every step closer to the truth, the danger felt more real, more immediate. The stakes were higher than ever, and I was running out of time. The Quinns had secrets they would do anything to protect, and I was caught in the middle. But I couldn't turn back now. Not when Hazel's future depended on it. The question was, how much was I willing to risk to see justice served? And would I lose everything in the process? The days that followed my discovery at the bank were a blur of anxiety and determination. I felt like I was living on borrowed time, each moment a precarious balance between uncovering the truth and keeping Hazel safe. The documents and Fiona's letter weighed heavily on me, a constant reminder of the danger lurking within the Quinn family. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, poring over the documents once again, Grant walked in. His face was drawn, shadows under his eyes hinting at sleepless nights. He hesitated at the doorway, as if unsure of his place in the room. Mabel, we need to talk, he said finally, his voice tinged with a weariness that mirrored my own. I looked up, meeting his gaze. About what? He pulled out a chair and sat down, his hands fidgeting with a pen. I know about the trust fund. I found out about it a while ago, but I didn't know how to tell you. His admission hit me like a punch to the gut. You knew? And you didn't say anything? Grant sighed, running a hand through his hair. I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. I watched him, trying to gauge his sincerity. What else are you hiding, Grant? He hesitated, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. Walter's been grooming Hazel to take over someday. He wants to secure the family legacy through her. The revelation was a sucker punch. Hazel as the heir to Walter's empire? It was a future I hadn't considered, and one I wasn't sure she wanted. Does Hazel know? No, Grant replied, his voice heavy with regret. And I don't think she should. Not yet. I nodded, my mind racing with the implications. Hazel was just a child, thrust into a world of power and manipulation. I couldn't let her be used as a pawn in Walter's game. The next day, I met Nora for coffee, needing her pragmatic perspective. As I recounted Grant's confession, her expression shifted from concern to determination. Mabel, this changes everything. You need to get Hazel out of there before Walter tightens his grip, Nora said, her voice firm. I nodded, the weight of her words settling over me. But how? Walter's influence is everywhere. Nora leaned in, her eyes sharp. We need leverage. Something that will force Walter to back off. Her suggestion lingered in my mind as I drove home. I knew I had to act, but the path forward was fraught with uncertainty. The Quinns were powerful, and I was just one person trying to protect Hazel from a legacy she never asked for. That evening, as I sat with Hazel, I watched her laugh at something on her laptop, her innocence a stark contrast to the storm brewing around her. I knew I had to shield her from the darkness threatening to engulf us both. The next morning, I received a call from an unknown number. My heart raced as I answered, half expecting another anonymous tip. But the voice on the other end was familiar. Mabel, it's Vivian, she said, her tone clipped. We need to talk. I agreed to meet her, curiosity and apprehension mingling in my chest. As I arrived at the estate, Vivian met me in the drawing room, her demeanor as polished as ever. Mabel, I know you've been digging into family matters, she began, her eyes narrowing. But you must understand, everything we do is for the family's future. I met her gaze, unflinching. And what about Hazel's future? Does she get a say in any of this? Vivian's expression softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through her usual facade. I care for Hazel, truly, but Walter is set in his ways. He believes this is what's best. Her words hung in the air, a confession wrapped in justification. It was clear Vivian was caught between loyalty and love, a struggle I knew all too well. As I left the estate, I realized the power dynamics were shifting. Vivian's uncertainty was a crack in Walter's armor, a potential ally in my fight for Hazel. But the path ahead was still uncertain, and every step felt like walking through a minefield. The stakes had never been higher, and I knew I had to act fast. Walter's plans for Hazel were a threat I couldn't ignore, and the clock was ticking. But with every revelation, my resolve grew stronger. I would protect Hazel, no matter the cost. The question was, could I outmaneuver Walter before it was too late? And what would be the price of victory in a game where the rules were constantly changing? With each passing day, the pressure mounted like a storm ready to break. The documents I had uncovered were a ticking time bomb, and I knew I had to act before the Quinns found a way to silence me. Every glance over my shoulder felt like a reminder that I was being watched, and every shadow seemed to whisper of danger. One evening, as I sat in the living room, the tension between Grant and me was palpable. He paced the floor, a caged energy simmering beneath his calm exterior. I could tell he was wrestling with his own demons, caught between loyalty to his family and the need to protect Hazel. Mabel, we need to decide what to do next, he said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but there was an urgency in his eyes. I nodded, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. We can't let Walter get away with this. but we need to be smart about it. Grant paused, his gaze fixed on the floor. What if we go to the authorities? Hand over the documents and let them handle it. The suggestion hung in the air, tempting in its simplicity. But I knew it wasn't that easy. Walter's influence was far-reaching, and a misstep could put Hazel in more danger. And what if Walter finds out before we can? He'll do anything to protect himself. Grant's jaw tightened, frustration evident in the set of his shoulders. Then what do? We can't just sit here and wait for him to make the next move. I stood up, the restlessness propelling me into action. We need leverage. Something that will force Walter to back off. As I spoke, an idea took shape, a risky plan that could turn the tide in our favor. But it was a gamble, and the stakes were higher than ever. I glanced at Hazel, who was sprawled on the couch with her headphones on, oblivious to the storm raging around her. We need to get Hazel out of here, I said, my voice firm with resolve. Somewhere safe, where Walter can't reach her. Grant nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. I know a place. A cabin upstate. It's secluded and no one knows about it. The plan was set, but the execution was fraught with risk. We had to act quickly before Walter caught wind of our intentions. As the evening wore on, I packed a bag for Hazel, my hands shaking with the enormity of what we were about to do. The next morning, as we prepared to leave, there was a knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat, fear and anticipation mingling in my chest. Grant opened the door to reveal Vivian, her expression a mix of concern and determination. Mabel, Grant, we need to talk, she said, her voice urgent. Walter's planning something. I don't know what, but you need to be careful. Her warning was unexpected, a glimmer of hope in the midst of chaos. Vivian, we need your help, I said, seizing the opportunity. We need to get Hazel to safety. Vivian hesitated, the conflict visible in her eyes. I want to help, but if Walter finds out, we'll handle Walter, Grant interjected, his voice steady. But Hazel needs to be away from here. Vivian nodded, a decision made. I'll stall Walter, give you time to get away. With Vivian's help, we had a chance. But as we loaded Hazel into the car, a new fear gripped me. What if this wasn't enough? What if Walter's reach extended further than we imagined? As we drove away from the house, the gravity of our actions settled over me. We were crossing a line, stepping into a world where the rules were dictated by power and influence. But for Hazel's sake, it was a risk we had to take. The road stretched out before us, a path fraught with uncertainty and danger. But with each mile, my resolve hardened. I would do whatever it took to protect Hazel, even if it meant confronting the darkness within the Quinn family. The question was, how far would Walter go to maintain his empire? And could we outmaneuver him before it was too late? The drive upstate was tense, the silence in the car heavy with unspoken fears. Hazel sat in the back seat, headphones on, oblivious to the gravity of our escape. Grant's grip on the steering wheel was tight, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. I watched the trees blur past, each mile feeling like a small victory against the storm we were fleeing. But as we neared the cabin, a sense of unease settled over me. We were stepping into the unknown, leaving behind the safety of familiarity for a refuge that felt both promising and perilous. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that Walter's reach extended further than we imagined. When we finally arrived, the cabin stood silent and secluded, surrounded by dense woods that offered both protection and a sense of isolation. Hazel bounded out of the car, eager to explore, while Grant and I unloaded the bags, our movements synchronized by necessity rather than comfort. As night fell, the weight of our situation pressed down on me. The cabin was a temporary sanctuary, but it couldn't shield us from the reality waiting beyond its walls. The documents I had found were a ticking time bomb, and Walter wouldn't rest until he regained control. Later, as Hazel slept upstairs, Grant and I sat in the dimly lit living room, the shadows casting long, looming shapes on the walls. The silence between us was thick, filled with the tension of unresolved questions and unspoken fears. We can't stay here forever, I said finally, my voice breaking the quiet. Walter won't stop until he finds us. Grant nodded, his expression grim. I know, but we need time to figure out our next move. I leaned back, exhaustion tugging at my bones. What if we don't have time? What if he's already closing in? Grant's gaze met mine, a flicker of determination in his eyes. We'll figure it out. We have to. His words were meant to reassure, but they only highlighted the precariousness of our situation. We were outmatched, a small family against a powerful empire, and the odds felt insurmountable. The next morning, a knock at the door shattered the fragile peace we had found. My heart leapt into my throat as I opened it, half expecting to see Walter's men. Instead, it was Nora, her face drawn with urgency. Mabel, you need to know something, she said, stepping inside. Walter's filed a missing persons report. He's using it to track you down. The revelation hit me like a punch, the walls of our sanctuary closing in. How long do we have? Not long, Nora replied, her voice laced with worry. You need to move and fast. As we scrambled to pack, the gravity of our situation became painfully clear. Walter was closing in, and our options were dwindling. Every plan we had seemed to unravel, leaving us with nothing but desperation and a dwindling sense of hope. In the chaos, Hazel approached me, her eyes wide with confusion. Aunt Mabel, what's happening? Why are we leaving? I knelt down, forcing a smile. We're going on adventure, sweetie. Somewhere safe. Her brow furrowed, skepticism in her gaze. But why do we have to hide? Her question pierced through my resolve, a reminder of the innocence we were trying to protect. Because we love you, Hazel, and we want to keep you safe. As we loaded the car once more, the reality of our situation settled over me like a heavy cloak. We were running out of time, and the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. But just as we were about to leave, the sound of an approaching car stopped us in our tracks. My heart pounded as a black sedan pulled up, the driver's door opening to reveal Walter, his expression as unyielding as ever. Mabel, Grant, he said, his voice carrying a weight of authority. We need to talk. His presence was a final twist, a reminder of the power he wielded and the danger we faced. As he approached, I felt the last threads of our plan unraveling, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. The confrontation was inevitable, and as Walter stood before us, I realized that our fight was far from over. We were at our lowest point, with everything to lose and no clear path to victory. The question was, how far were we willing to go to protect Hazel? And in the face of such overwhelming odds, could we find a way to turn the tide? Walter stood before us, his presence as commanding as ever, but there was an edge to his demeanor that hinted at desperation. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the clearing, and I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was it, the confrontation I had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Mabel, Grant, Walter began, his voice smooth but carrying an undercurrent of steel. I understand your concerns, but this isn't the way to handle things. Grant stepped forward, his posture tense. And what is the way, Walter? To let you control Hazel's life, like you did with Clark and me? Walter's eyes flickered with something akin to regret, but he quickly masked it with resolve. I only want what's best for the family. And what about what's best for Hazel? I interjected, my voice firm. She deserves a future of her choosing, not one dictated by your ambitions. Walter's gaze shifted to me, his expression unreadable. You don't understand the pressures of maintaining a legacy. The sacrifices needed. I shook my head, frustration boiling over. Sacrifices? You mean like Fiona and Clark? How many more lives are you willing to ruin for the sake of your empire? Walter's face hardened, but there was a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. I never intended for things to go this far. But once you're in, it's hard to get out. The admission hung in the air, a crack in the armor of the man who had always seemed unbreakable. But I couldn't afford to let sympathy cloud my judgment. Not now. Then step aside, Walter, Grant said, his voice steady. Let us handle things. Let Hazel have the life she deserves. Walter hesitated, the weight of his past decisions visible in the lines etched on his face. And what if I refuse? The question was a challenge, a final test of our resolve. But before I could respond, Vivian appeared, her presence a calming counterpoint to Walter's intensity. "Walter, please," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "We've lost too much already. Let them go." Walter looked at her, a silent conversation passing between them. For a moment, it seemed as if he might relent, but then his gaze hardened once more. "No," he said, his voice firm. "I can't let everything I've built fall apart." The words were a catalyst, igniting the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface. But just as the situation seemed poised to spiral out of control, Hazel stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos with surprising clarity. "Grandpa, stop," she said, her eyes wide but determined. "I don't want to be a part of this. I just want to be a kid." Her words were simple but powerful, a reminder of what truly mattered. Walter's expression faltered, and for the first time, I saw the man behind the facade, a grandfather torn between ambition and love. The moment stretched, the air thick with anticipation. But then, unexpectedly, Walter sighed, the fight leaving him. "All right," he said quietly, the word carrying the weight of a lifetime of regrets. "All right." The tension in the air dissipated, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. Walter's decision was a turning point, a step toward healing the rift that had torn our family apart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the clearing in twilight, I felt a sense of closure settling over me. The battle was over, and though the path ahead was uncertain, it was one we would navigate together. The confrontation had brought us face to face with the core themes of our journey: revenge, justice, and the power of family. In the end, it was love and understanding that had prevailed, offering a glimmer of hope for the future. As we turned to leave, Walter called out, his voice carrying a note of vulnerability I had never heard before. "Mabel, Grant, thank you." His gratitude was unexpected, a testament to the change that had begun to take root. And as we walked away, I knew that though the road ahead would be challenging, we were no longer alone. Together, we would forge a new path, one defined not by the shadows of the past, but by the promise of a brighter future. The days following the confrontation with Walter were a whirlwind of change and reflection. The cabin, once a temporary refuge, now felt like the beginning of a new chapter. As we settled back into our lives, I could sense the shift in the air, a lightness that had been absent for too long. Walter kept his word, stepping down and transferring control of the family assets to Grant. It was a decision that surprised many, but it was a testament to the impact of our confrontation. The empire Walter had built was now in the hands of someone determined to use it for good. One afternoon, as the sun cast a warm glow over the garden, I found Hazel sitting under a tree, her laptop balanced on her knees. She looked up as I approached, a smile lighting up her face. "Aunt Mabel, look," she exclaimed, pointing to the screen. "I'm designing a website for a school project." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile back. "That's amazing, Hazel. You're really talented." She shrugged, a hint of pride in her eyes. "I want to do something that helps people, like you and Uncle Grant." Her words touched something deep within me, a reminder of why we had fought so hard. Hazel's future was hers to shape, free from the shadows of the past. Later, as Grant and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, the silence between us was comfortable, filled with the unspoken understanding of what we had overcome. "You did it," Grant said softly, his gaze on the horizon. "You protected Hazel and changed everything." I shook my head, a smile playing on my lips. "We did it. Together." He reached for my hand, his touch grounding me in the moment. "I've been thinking about what comes next, how we can make things right." His words were a promise, a commitment to the path we had chosen. The legacy Walter had left was complex, but it was also an opportunity to build something new, something better. As the days turned into weeks, We worked to secure Hazel's trust fund, ensuring her future was safe and independent. Walter's decision to step back had set a ripple effect in motion, one that allowed us to redefine what family meant. Vivian, too, found her place in this new world. She visited often, her presence a reminder of the strength that lay in unity. The past couldn't be changed, but it could be learned from, and she was determined to be a part of Hazel's life in a way that mattered. One evening, as I sorted through the last of Fiona's belongings, I came across a letter I hadn't noticed before. It was addressed to me, written in Fiona's familiar script. "Mabel, if you're reading this, it means you've uncovered the truth," it began. "I always believed in the power of family to heal and transform. Protect Hazel, and remember that love is stronger than any legacy." Her words were a balm to my soul, a reminder of the journey we had taken and the strength we had found in each other. As I sat there, the letter in my hands, I realized that our story was one of redemption and transformation. We had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, guided by love and the promise of a brighter future. But even as we moved forward, a lingering question remained. What would we do with the power now in our hands? The answer lay not in the past, but in the choices we made each day, in the commitment to use our influence for good. In the end, the journey had been about more than just justice or revenge. It was about finding our way back to each other, about forging a path defined by love and resilience. As the sun set on our new life, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, united by the bonds we had fought so hard to protect. And as Hazel joined us on the porch, her laughter ringing out into the evening, I knew that we had found something precious, a family bound not by secrets or power, but by the simple, enduring truth of love.
The phone vibrates against my desk, my mother's name flashing on the screen like a warning sign. I let it ring 4 times, each buzz drilling into my skull before I finally answer. "Millie, darling, have you heard the news about Rachel?" Her voice carries that familiar breathless excitement reserved exclusively for my sister's accomplishments. I glance at the promotion letter sitting on my desk, the one I'd been planning to share. "No, Mother. What news?" "She's been offered a partnership at Anderson and Mills. Can you believe it? At her age, your father and I are absolutely over the moon." The words tumble out in a rush, each syllable another nail in my coffin of invisibility. "That's wonderful." I trace the embossed letterhead of my own achievement, the words Chief Technology Officer swimming before my eyes. "Actually, Mother, I wanted to tell you—" "Oh, and that's not even the best part. James proposed last night. We're planning an engagement party for next weekend. You'll need to clear your schedule, of course." My fingers curl around the promotion letter, crumpling its edges. "Next weekend? I have Lucas that weekend. Ben's out of town and, well, surely you can find someone to watch him. This is your sister's engagement we're talking about. You know how important family is." Family. The word tastes bitter in my mouth. Right, family. Speaking of which, Rachel mentioned you've been doing well at that little startup of yours. Maybe you could help with some of the wedding expenses? Your father's investments haven't been performing as expected, and Rachel deserves something special. The letter in my hand tears slightly under my grip. 5 years of climbing the corporate ladder, of juggling single motherhood with 60-hour work weeks, reduced to that little startup and an ATM opportunity. "I'll have to check my finances," I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "The divorce and Lucas's therapy sessions have been expensive." "Oh, Millie." Her sigh carries years of disappointment. "If you'd just tried harder with Ben, Rachel always said he seemed unhappy." Of course she did. Rachel, who'd spent countless dinner parties flirting with my then-husband while I was busy taking care of Lucas's meltdowns. Rachel, who'd known about Sophie months before I did but never said a word. "I should go, Mother. I have a meeting. Don't forget about next weekend. And please wear something professional. The Anderson and Mills partners will be there." The call ends, but the silence that follows feels louder than her words. I stare at my reflection in the darkened computer screen. 31 years old, successful by any objective measure, yet still searching for approval in all the wrong places. My phone buzzes again, this time with a text from Sarah. "Drinks tonight? Michael's watching the kids. Before I can respond, an email notification pops up. It's from the company board, announcing my promotion to the entire staff. Congratulations flood my inbox, colleagues stopping by my office with genuine smiles and warm words. Jack from marketing brings me my favorite coffee, a small post-it note stuck to the cup. They finally recognized what we all knew. Proud of you, Mills. I look at the torn promotion letter, then at Sarah's text, and finally at the family photo on my desk. Just Lucas and me at the beach last summer, both of us laughing at something long forgotten. The image blurs as tears prick my eyes, but for the first time today, they're not tears of frustration. I pick up my phone and text Sarah back. Definitely, I have news, and maybe an idea. Because here's the thing about being invisible. No one sees you coming. And after 31 years of playing the overlooked daughter, the forgiving sister, the dutiful ex-wife, maybe it's time to show them exactly who I've become. I smooth out the crumpled promotion letter and pin it to my wall, right next to Lucas's latest artwork. Let them keep underestimating me. Let them think I'm still that malleable, eager-to-please daughter. They'll learn soon enough. The wine glass trembles slightly in Sarah's hand as she processes what I've just told her. We're tucked away in our usual corner of Maxwell's, the Friday night crowd providing perfect cover for conversations better left unheard. $10,000. Sarah's whisper carries equal parts disbelief and outrage. For wedding flowers? That's just the deposit. I take a long sip of my martini. Mother called it a small contribution to Rachel's perfect day. And what did you say? I told her I'd think about it. The olive in my glass becomes suddenly fascinating. What else could I say? Sarah sets her wine down with more force than necessary. How about no? You're still paying off Lucas's occupational therapy, and Ben's child support payments are always late. They're my family, Sarah. Are they? Her voice softens. Because from where I'm sitting, they treat you more like their personal bank than their daughter. Before I can respond, my phone lights up with a text from Rachel. Hey sis, Mom said you're helping with the flowers. You're the best. Coffee tomorrow? Need to discuss some other wedding details. Sarah reads the message over my shoulder and makes a sound somewhere between a laugh and a scoff. Funny how she never wanted coffee when you were going through your divorce. The truth of it stings. I remember those endless nights, Lucas crying for his father while I tried to explain why Daddy lived with Aunt Sophie now. Rachel had been too busy with her law career to return my calls. I should go, I say, gathering my things. Lucas has therapy at 9 tomorrow. Millie, Sarah catches my wrist. Promise me you'll at least talk to Michael about the numbers before you commit to anything. He's good at finding the holes in these things. I promise, knowing I probably won't. The drive home is a blur of streetlights and memories, Rachel's law school graduation, where our parents gifted her a new car, my own graduation dinner, interrupted by Rachel's surprise announcement of her first internship. Lucas is already asleep when I get home, Michael having dropped him off earlier. His favorite dinosaur tucked under one arm. He looks so peaceful, so untouched by the complexities of adult relationships. I brush his hair back, wondering if my parents ever watched me sleep like this, if they ever felt this fierce need to protect. My phone buzzes again. This time it's my father. Millicent, he starts, using my full name like he always does when he wants something. Your mother mentioned you were hesitating about the flowers. I wasn't hesitating, Father. I was being practical. 10,000 is a lot of money. This is your sister's wedding. Surely your startup is doing well enough to help family? The dismissive pause before startup makes my teeth clench. We just secured Series B funding, but that doesn't mean... Excellent. Then it's settled. Your mother will connect you with the florist. Oh, and Rachel mentioned your meeting tomorrow. She has some thoughts about the venue deposit as well. The call ends before I can respond. I stand in Lucas's doorway, watching his chest rise and fall, thinking about the college fund I've been struggling to build for him, about the therapy sessions that insurance won't cover, about Rachel's designer wardrobe and my father's country club membership. My phone pings one last time. It's Jack from work. Hey Mills, board wants to announce your promotion at next month's investor meeting. They're excited about the PR angle, female CTO, single mom, real inspiration stuff. You okay with that? And suddenly, I see it. The leverage I've been missing. The way to make them finally see me. I text Rachel back, coffee sounds great, looking forward to discussing everything. Then I open my laptop and start researching my company's biggest investors. It takes less than an hour to find what I'm looking for. The connection between Anderson and Mills and our venture capital firm. The partnership offer Rachel's so proud of. The one our parents can't stop bragging about. The one that could disappear with a single well-placed comment at next month's investor meeting. I closed the laptop feeling something shift inside me. Not guilt, exactly. More like recognition. Of power. Of possibility. I'm sorry, baby. I whisper to Lucas's sleeping form. But sometimes mommy has to play by their rules to change the game. Tomorrow, I'll smile over coffee with Rachel. I'll nod at her plans and pretend to take notes about venues and deposits. And I'll start laying the groundwork for something my family never saw coming. Because they taught me well. Family helps family. They just never specified how. The engagement party invitation sits on my desk like a beautifully wrapped bomb. Cream-colored cardstock, gold lettering, and there in the corner, a tiny note in my mother's handwriting. Sophie will be attending with Ben. Please be civil. Civil. As if I'm the one who needs the reminder. I'm still staring at it when Jack knocks on my office door. Emergency meeting with the board in 10. Apparently, Anderson and Mills is making waves about our latest acquisition. My fingers trace the edge of the invitation. Rachel's firm? Yeah, weird timing, right? They've never shown interest in our deals before. I slip the invitation into my drawer, something cold and certain settling in my chest. Weird indeed. The boardroom is tense when I arrive. Our CEO looks like he's aged 10 years since yesterday. Millie, good. We need damage control. Anderson and Mills is threatening to block our merger unless we restructure the deal. They're claiming conflict of interest. On what grounds? Your sister. He slides a document across the table. Rachel Carter is listed as lead counsel on their objection. The room goes quiet. I scan the document, my sister's signature bold at the bottom. The same signature I've watched her practice since we were kids, perfecting every loop until it looked exactly like our mother's. I can handle this, I say, my voice steadier than my hands. Later that afternoon, my phone rings. Ben's number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but Lucas's therapy bills flash through my mind. You're late with the payment again, I answer. Yeah, about that. His voice has that smooth quality it always gets when he's about to disappoint someone. Sophie and I are putting money down on a house. I might need to adjust the payment schedule. Adjust? The word tastes like acid. Lucas's therapy isn't optional, Ben. Come on, Mills. You're doing well at that tech thing. And with Rachel's wedding coming up? What does Rachel's wedding have to do with your son's care? A pause. Sophie mentioned you're handling the flowers. 10 grand, right? If you can afford that. The laugh that escapes me doesn't sound entirely sane. You're using my sister's wedding flowers to justify shorting your child support? Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying. No, I'll tell you what I'm saying. You'll make the full payment on time, or I'll have my lawyer contact Anderson and Mills about revisiting the custody arrangement. I'm sure Rachel would love to handle that case too. The silence that follows is satisfying until he breaks it with, Sophie's pregnant. The world tilts sideways. I grip my desk, wedding invitation sliding from the drawer as I steady myself. Congratulations, I manage. The payment is due Tuesday. I end the call and text Sarah. Need you? Now. She responds immediately. On my way. Michael's got the kids. I'm still sitting there when Jack returns. Hey, the board wants to know how you want to handle the Rachel situation. Jesus, Mills, you're white as a sheet. I'm fine. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Tell them I'll present a strategy tomorrow. And Jack, could you pull everything we have on Anderson and Mills's partner track requirements, specifically their conflict of interest policies? He gives me an odd look, but nods. Sarah arrives as I'm gathering my things. One look at my face, and she wraps me in a hug that nearly breaks me. Sophie's pregnant. I whisper into her shoulder. Oh, honey. And Rachel's trying to block my company's merger. She pulls back, eyes sharp. What are you going to do? I think about the invitation in my drawer, about Lucas's therapy sessions, about Ben's new house and baby and perfect Sophie, about Rachel's partnership track and my parents' pride. I'm going to attend my sister's engagement party, I say, picking up my bag, and I'm going to smile and congratulate Ben and Sophie, and then I'm going to remind my family exactly who they've been underestimating all these years. Sarah studies me for a long moment. Just remember Lucas in all this. I am. I touch the photo of him on my desk. Everything I do is for him. And maybe it's time he saw his mother stand up for herself. As we leave, I send a quick text to my mother. About the flowers, I'll handle everything. And don't worry about Ben and Sophie, I'll be perfectly civil. Because that's the thing about civility. It's the perfect cover for warfare. And I've just been handed all the ammunition I need. The engagement party feels like a carefully choreographed dance of daggers. Crystal glasses catch the light, conversations buzz with artificial warmth, and there in the center of it all stands Rachel, radiant in designer white, while Sophie rests one manicured hand on her still flat stomach. Millie. My mother's voice carries that familiar note of criticism. You're late. Lucas's therapy ran long. I accept a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, noting how my mother's eyes narrow at the mention of her grandson. Where's father? Discussing the Anderson and Mills situation with Rachel's partners. She lowers her voice. Really, Millicent, couldn't you have handled that merger more discreetly? It's putting Rachel in such an awkward position. Before I can respond, Jack appears at my elbow. Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Carter, but I need to borrow Millie for a moment. Board emergency. My mother's dismissive wave follows us as Jack guides me to a quiet corner. You need to see this. He hands me his phone, displaying an email thread. Rachel's not just blocking the merger. She's suggesting a hostile takeover through one of Anderson and Mills's clients. The champagne turns bitter in my mouth. She wouldn't. There's more. Jack scrolls down. The partner overseeing the deal, Tom Carter. My father, of course. Across the room, Ben laughs at something Sophie says, his hand protective over her abdomen. Rachel joins them, all three heads bent together in conspiratorial intimacy. What's our play? Jack asks. Give me an hour. I hand him back his phone. And Jack? Thank you. For everything. He squeezes my arm before disappearing into the crowd. I find Michael by the bar, his steady presence an anchor in the storm. Where's Sarah? Home with Lucas. He was asking for you. Michael studies my face. What's wrong? I need a favor. I tell him about the takeover attempt, about my father's involvement. Can you look into Anderson and Mills's financials, specifically any connections to Carter family investments? Jesus, Millie. He runs a hand through his hair. This isn't just business anymore. This is your family. They stopped being family the moment I catch myself as Rachel approaches. Millie, I've been looking everywhere for you. Her smile is perfect, practiced. We need to discuss the venue deposit. Mother says you're handling it? Actually, I set down my glass. We need to discuss Anderson and Mills. Her smile flickers. That's just business, sis. Nothing personal. Like Sophie wasn't personal? The words hang between us, sharp and dangerous. Rachel's mask slips just for a moment, revealing something that looks almost like guilt. You don't understand, she whispers. Father's investments. The wedding. We need this deal. And suddenly everything clicks into place. The desperate grab for the merger, the rushed wedding plans, the constant demands for money. My family isn't just greedy, they're drowning. Miss Carter? A young associate appears. Your father needs you both in the study, immediately. The study is father's domain, all leather and mahogany and old money pretense. He stands at his desk, mother perched anxiously nearby. Shut the door, he commands. I do, feeling like I'm 10 years old again, about to be scolded for some imagined slight against Rachel. The merger, he begins, must go through, under our terms. Or what? The words escape before I can stop them. Or this family loses everything. He spreads documents across his desk. Bank statements, investment reports, all bleeding red. Your sister's partnership, the house, your mother's social standing, all of it depends on this deal. And Lucas's trust fund, Rachel adds quietly, the one Ben set up through father's firm. The room spins slightly. You put my son's money into your failing investments? We had no choice, mother interjects. Rachel's wedding, her career trajectory, we had to maintain appearances. I look at them, these people who share my blood but not my values, who gambled with my child's future to maintain their facade of success. I'll have my answer tomorrow, I say, turning to leave. Millicent, father's voice stops me. Remember where your loyalties lie. I think of Lucas, waiting at home with Sarah, of Jack, who believed in me when no one else did, of the life I've built despite them, not because of them. I remember exactly where my loyalties lie, I say, and close the door behind me. In my car, I text Michael, "Start digging. I want everything." Because some loyalties need to be broken before they break you. Michael's research arrives at 3 in the morning, a detailed email that makes my hands shake. I forward it to Jack with 2 words, board meeting. By dawn, I'm in my office, staring at the skyline as the sun bleeds across the horizon. The door opens without a knock. "You can't do this," Rachel says, still in her evening wear from whatever society function she's attended. "Father will never recover." Like Lucas won't recover from losing his trust fund? I don't turn around. "How long have you known about the embezzlement?" Her silence is answer enough. "Did Sophie know too? Is that why she stayed with Ben after the affair? Because father was funneling company money through his accounts?" It's not that simple. Rachel's heels click across the floor. Everything father did, he did for us, for the family name. No. I finally face her. Everything he did for you. And now you want me to save him by tanking my company's merger. We can make it work. She pulls out a folder. "I have a proposal if you'll just—" "Miss Carter?" Jack appears in the doorway. "The board is ready." Rachel grabs my arm as I pass. "Please, don't do this." For a moment, I see past the designer dress and perfect makeup to the little sister who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Then I remember Lucas's therapy bills, Ben's late payments, my parents' constant dismissal. "You should call father," I say. "The SEC will be visiting Anderson and Mills this afternoon." The boardroom falls silent as I enter. These people trusted me, promoted me, believed in me when my own family wouldn't. I won't let them down. The merger is compromised. I begin, laying out Michael's findings. Anderson and Mills has been covering illegal transactions through shell companies. My voice catches. I feel Jack's supportive presence beside me. Thomas Carter has been orchestrating it for years. The evidence is irrefutable. Board members exchange glances. My phone buzzes repeatedly. Mother, father, Ben. I ignore them all. "We'll need to distance ourselves immediately," our CEO says. "Millie, given your connection—" I understand. I slide a folder across the table. My resignation, effective immediately. Actually, he shares a look with the other board members. We had something else in mind. Hours later, I pull into Sarah's driveway. Lucas runs out, throwing himself into my arms. "Mommy, Aunt Sarah let me have pizza for breakfast." Sarah appears in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Michael told me what happened. Are you okay?" "No." I hug Lucas tighter. "But I will be." My phone rings again. Rachel. This time I answer. "They're arresting him," she sobs. "Father's being arrested, and mother's having a breakdown, and it's all over the news, and—" "Rachel." My voice is steady, surprising even me. "I have to go. Lucas needs dinner." "How can you be so cold? We're your family." "No." I watch Lucas showing Sarah his latest drawing. "You're the people who used my son's trust fund to cover up fraud, who used my company to fix your mistakes, who never once—" I swallow hard. "Who never once put me first. The board made you CEO, didn't they?" Her voice turns hard. "This was your plan all along. Goodbye, Rachel." Inside, Lucas chatters about his day while Sarah makes coffee. My phone lights up with a text from Jack. "Press conference tomorrow at 9. You ready for this?" Another text arrives from Ben. "We need to talk about Lucas's custody arrangement." Then Mother. "How could you do this to your father?" Finally, Father. "You'll regret this betrayal." I silence my phone and sit at Sarah's kitchen table, watching Lucas color. He looks up, smiling that innocent smile that makes everything worth it. "Mommy, are you sad?" "No, baby." I touch his cheek. "I'm just thinking about choices. Like when you choose pizza or hamburgers. Something like that." I pull him close, breathing in his clean, sweet scent. "Sometimes you have to choose between what's easy and what's right." Sarah squeezes my shoulder as she sets down coffee. "You chose right, Mills." My phone screen lights up one last time. A news alert about Anderson and Mills, about my father, about the new CEO appointment at my company, about choices and consequences and the price of truth. I turn the phone face down. Tomorrow will bring its own battles. Tonight is for pizza and coloring and the family I chose, not the one I was born into. Sometimes revenge looks like justice, and sometimes justice looks like walking away. The hospital ceiling swims in and out of focus as I try to make sense of the doctor's words. Stress-induced collapse, severe exhaustion, mandatory rest. Jack stands in the doorway, his usual confidence replaced by worry. The press conference. Can wait, Sarah interrupts, adjusting my IV. She needs rest. My phone lights up. Rachel's name again. I've lost count of her calls since Father's arrest 3 days ago. The room spins when I try to reach for it. Lucas, I manage to whisper. Who's with Lucas? Michael has him, Sarah assures me. But your parents? No. The word comes out sharper than intended. They can't have him. They're his grandparents, Mills, and with you here. The door opens, and Mother sweeps in, perfectly coiffed despite everything. Millicent, really. Hospitalized right before Rachel's business launch. The timing is incredibly inconvenient. Sarah's hand tightens on the bed rail. Jack mutters something about getting coffee and escapes. Mother, I try to sit up, fighting the dizziness. I need you to watch Lucas, just for a few days. Oh, darling. She adjusts her designer scarf. We simply can't. Rachel needs us at the launch. It's crucial for rebuilding our reputation after what you did to your father. The monitor beside me beeps faster. What I did? Well, if you hadn't been so vindictive. But that's not important now. We've arranged for Lucas to stay with Ben and Sophie. They're expecting their own child, after all. It'll be good practice. The room goes cold. You did what? Ben's already picked him up from Michael. Sophie's so good with children, and really, it's better for Lucas to be with stable parents right now. I rip the IV from my arm, ignoring the sharp sting. You had no right. Actually, Ben appears in the doorway. I had every right. My lawyer filed for emergency custody an hour ago. Given your current state and the scandal with your family, the floor seems to tilt beneath me as I stand. Sarah grabs my elbow, steadying me. Where is my son? Safe, Ben says. With Sophie, away from all this mess you've created. My legs give out. Sarah catches me before I hit the floor, helping me back to the bed. The room spins violently. It's temporary, Ben continues, almost gentle. Until you're better. Sophie's already enrolled him in a new therapy program. One that won't embarrass the family, Mother adds. Really, Millicent? Art therapy? What would people think? I look at them. My mother in her perfect outfit, Ben in his expensive suit, and see strangers. People who've taken everything, piece by piece, and still want more. Get out. My voice shakes. Both of you. Millie, Ben starts. Get out. They leave. Mother's heels clicking a sharp rhythm, Ben's cologne lingering like a threat. Sarah pulls out her phone. I'm calling Michael. We'll get him back, Mills. Don't. I close my eyes against the tears. They'll use any interference against me in court. You know they will. The silence that follows is broken only by the steady beep of monitors. Jack returns. Coffee forgotten. The board, he says quietly. They're reconsidering your position, with everything happening. Of course they are. Father's arrest, my collapse, the custody battle about to explode across headlines. I've become a liability to the very company I helped build. My phone buzzes again. Rachel. I'm sorry about Lucas, but you brought this on yourself. Then Mother. It's for the best, darling. Sophie will be a wonderful influence. Finally, Ben. We'll take good care of him. Maybe this time apart will help you reflect. I think of Lucas with Sophie, learning to call her Mom, of my father in jail, my mother at Rachel's launch, my sister building her business on the ashes of my sacrifice, of everything I've lost in my quest for justice. Mills? Sarah's voice seems far away. What do you need? I need my son. I need my family to love me as much as they love their reputation. I need the past month to disappear. But what I say is, time. I need time. Because revenge was supposed to feel like victory. Instead, it feels like this. A hospital room, an empty bed, and the sound of my world crumbling while monitors count each hollow heartbeat. The boardroom feels different at midnight, colder. The city lights below cast shadows across Rachel's face as she stands at the window, her perfect posture finally showing cracks. They're freezing our accounts, she says without turning. All of them. The FBI says father's fraud went deeper than anyone realized. I set my laptop on the conference table. I know. Now she does turn, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. Of course you do. You're the CEO now, aren't you? Everything you wanted. Not everything. My voice stays steady. Where's Lucas? Safe, with Sophie. She moves to the table, heels silent on the thick carpet. Mother's having another breakdown. The launch failed. Everything's falling apart and you're just watching. Like you watched when Ben left, when Lucas needed therapy, when father gambled away his trust fund. Her hand trembles as she reaches for my laptop. If you help us, maybe we can fix... No. I close the laptop before she can touch it. I'm done fixing your messes. He's asking for you, she whispers. Lucas. He doesn't understand why mommy's not coming home. The words hit like physical blows, but I grip the chair until my knuckles whiten. Ben's custody claim won't stand. Not now. What do you mean? I push a folder across the table. Sophie's pregnant, but not with Ben's baby. The dates don't match. And her new therapy program for Lucas, unlicensed, run by her cousin. The same cousin who's been helping father hide money. Rachel sinks into a chair. How did you... I learned from the best. Family helps family, right? The elevator dings. Ben storms in, Sophie trailing behind him. You vindictive bitch. You told the FBI about Sophie's clinic? No. I stand slowly. I told them about the money laundering. The clinic was just a bonus. Sophie's face crumples. Ben, I'm sorry. I never meant... Shut up. He rounds on me. Where's the evidence? Already submitted, along with proof that you knew about father's fraud when you filed for emergency custody, trying to hide Lucas before it all came out. His fist slams the table. Rachel flinches. Sophie backs away. You've ruined everything, he snarls. No. My voice rises. You did that. All of you. Every time you chose your reputations over my son. Every time you protected your perfect facade instead of protecting him. Mills. Jack appears in the doorway. They're here. FBI agents flood the room. Rachel starts crying. Sophie confesses everything in a rush. Ben threatens lawyers until handcuffs click around his wrists. Through it all, I stand still, watching my family's carefully constructed world crumble. Millie. Rachel catches my arm as they lead Ben away. Please, help me fix this. For a moment, I see us as children again. Rachel running to me after skinning her knee, trusting her big sister to make everything better. I can't. I gentle my voice. Some things shouldn't be fixed. Then why? Her grip tightens. Why did you wait until now? You had the evidence for weeks. Because I needed to know if any of you would choose Lucas. Just once. But you didn't. You never do. Sarah appears with Michael, who carries a sleeping Lucas. My heart stops, then restarts. The judge signed the order, Sarah says. Full custody reinstated. Sophie confessed to everything. Lucas stirs as Michael hands him to me. Mommy, can we go home now? Yes, baby. I kiss his forehead, breathing in his familiar scent. We're going home. Rachel watches, tears streaming. What happens to us? You rebuild, without me. I adjust Lucas in my arms. Some families aren't worth saving. Millie, goodbye, Rachel. I carry Lucas out, past the agents, past Sophie's tears and Ben's threats and the ruins of my father's empire. Sarah and Michael flank me like guards. Jack holds the elevator. You okay? He asks as we descend. Lucas snuggles closer, already falling back asleep. Safe. Finally safe. No, I answer honestly, but I will be, because revenge wasn't what I thought it would be. It wasn't loud or triumphant or satisfying. It was this: quiet choices in midnight boardrooms, truth instead of facades, the weight of my sleeping son in my arms, and maybe, finally, peace. The newspaper sits untouched on my desk. Father's sentencing hearing splashed across the front page. Rachel's text remains unread. Mother's asking for you. Please come home. Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated concept. Lucas bursts into my office, brandishing a drawing. Look, Mommy, it's our family. I study the crayon figures. Me, Lucas, Sarah, and Michael, their kids, Jack holding what appears to be a coffee cup. The edges of the paper are decorated with dinosaurs. It's beautiful, baby. I touch the empty corner. Is there room for more? He considers this seriously. Maybe. But only if they're nice. Miss Amy says we don't have to keep people who make us sad. Miss Amy, his new therapist, who specializes in art and doesn't care about what society thinks, who sees Lucas's sensitivity as a strength, not an embarrassment. Mills? Jack appears in the doorway. Rachel's here. Lucas grips my hand. Is she nice now? I don't know, baby. I squeeze his fingers. Want to help me find out? He nods solemnly. Rachel stands by the window, thinner than I remember, designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. She turns when we enter, eyes fixing on Lucas. Hi, buddy, she says softly. Remember me? Lucas studies her, head tilted. You made Mommy cry. Rachel flinches. I did. I made a lot of mistakes. Mother's in therapy, she continues, addressing me now. Real therapy, not the kind we used to mock. Father's accepting a plea deal, and She swallows hard. I'm starting over. A small practice, helping families navigate custody battles, trying to prevent what we did to you. We? The word hangs between us. I knew about Sophie's clinic, about Ben's plans for Lucas. I could have stopped it, but I was so angry that you'd succeeded where I'd failed, that you'd built something real while I was still playing the role they chose for me. Lucas tugs my hand. Can I show her my drawing? I nod. He presents it proudly. Rachel traces the crayon figures. It's wonderful. You're very talented. There's room for more, he announces, but only if you're nice. A tear slides down Rachel's cheek. I'd like to try, if your mom lets me. I study my sister, really study her. The perfectionist facade has cracked, revealing something raw and real underneath, something that might, with time and work, become authentic. Sunday dinners, I say finally. At Sarah and Michael's, once a month. We start there. She nods, understanding the terms, the boundaries, the chance that must be earned, not demanded. Can I? She hesitates. Can I hug him? I look at Lucas. He considers, then steps forward, offering a brief embrace before retreating to my side. Thank you, Rachel whispers. After she leaves, Lucas adds a small figure to his drawing's corner. That's Aunt Rachel, he explains, but I used yellow instead of red, because she's trying to be sunny instead of angry. I pin the drawing next to my degrees and awards, evidence of a different kind of success. Sarah texts, monthly dinner still on, Michael's grilling, Jack's bringing that woman from accounting. Lucas requested dinosaur-shaped nuggets. I smile, remembering Mother's horror at chicken nuggets on fine china, at therapy sessions instead of society parties, at a CEO who chooses finger paintings over family legacy. Another text arrives, from Ben's lawyer. Client accepts revised custody agreement. No appeals. Then Rachel. Thank you for the chance. I won't waste it. Finally, a message from an unknown number. Miss you, sis. Sophie. I delete the last one without responding. Some bridges stay burned. Lucas tugs my sleeve. Can we go home now? I want to show Miss Amy my new drawing tomorrow. Yes, baby. I gather my things, leaving the newspaper unread. Let's go home. Because revenge wasn't in the destruction after all. It was in the rebuilding. In choosing which walls to repair and which to leave in ruins. In teaching my son that family isn't about blood or obligation, but about the people who make space in their drawings for you. Even if that space starts small, in the corner, drawn in yellow instead of red.